All right, I think we're on. Hi, everyone. My name is Todd Scatini. I am the CEO and co-founder of Harvest 360, and I'm the chairman of the board at Blue Diamond Ventures, and I'm very proud to hold both of those positions. Welcome to our shareholders conference call, and I'd like to wish you a very, very happy 2021. We made it, right? It's great to have so many viewers here today. We have a packed audience on the conference call. I'd like to thank you all for sharing your valuable time with us. It's great to see current investors and also those who are maybe BLDV curious. My intention for this is to really set the stage for this conversation by defining our mission and our goals of the company and the operating divisions, the two wholly owned subsidiaries of Blue Diamond Ventures, which is Harvest 360 LLC and Harvest 360 Labs Incorporated. So let's get to it. Blue Diamond Ventures is a very unique company, right? I mean, we are a veteran-led company. We are leaders in the cannabis space at the local, federal, and the international level. We're really activists at heart. You know, our activism focuses on bringing access to cannabis to the world and to set the conditions for deeper and more meaningful research into cannabis as a medicine. As a 27-year veteran of the military, the U.S. Army to be specific, with an understanding of the medical advances that have been made because of military necessity and military research, we hope to help shine the Department of Defense's research lens on cannabis as an option to treat the wounds of war, both visible and invisible. And we hope to capture the imagination of the DoD and inspire them to take advantage of this incredibly useful and efficacious cannabis plant, right? To really kind of set the stage for what we believe could be a revolution in medical affairs. We believe that this plant has the potential to increase the survivability of soldiers in combat and improve the lives of veterans and their families after service and essentially improve the human experience in general. We are in the right place. We are in the right time with the right team, with strategic partners and academic relationships in place and under development to help us advance our objectives. Right? What do I mean by the right place? The right place is one, we're right in the middle of the United States, right? The fastest growing cannabis market on the planet, with policies continuing to evolve year after year after year, and the market beginning to expand and a deeper acceptance of cannabis as a medicine and just as a consumable product across the country. So we are definitely in the right place. We also have a geographic spread of the 4 team members that are really the driving engine of what we do, right? We're present in Denver, Colorado, often thought of as the capital of cannabis, but Harvest 360 really started there. Our COO for Harvest 360 and Blue Diamond Ventures, Sebastian Nassau, is located there in Denver, and also alongside our legal team of Block 45 Legal, who provides us exceptional advice and services in protecting intellectual property and technology that we're developing. I myself am located in Kansas City, Missouri, in one of the newest medical cannabis states in the country. It's what I believe to be the best medical cannabis program in the country. It's still in its nascent stages, but it's just continuing to increase exponentially as we go. So, and then we also have the CEO of Blue Diamond Ventures, Josh Alper, who's located and works between Michigan and Illinois, both, as you know, legal cannabis markets for medical and adult use. And then we also have David Serrano, our Chief of Business Development, who's located and covers the New Jersey and New York markets, and has significant footprints. And we're in all of those locations, but we're also, we're really boots on the ground, and we have the respect of local authorities and the activist community because we're part of those communities, and we are genuinely committed to improving the medical marijuana programs in those locations. All right. Additionally, we have connectivity around the world, right? We have a close relationship with the International Cannabis and Cannabinoids Institute, which is based in Prague, Czech Republic, as well as the European Industrial Hemp Association, based out of Brussels. So Right focus areas, right? We've got the right focus areas. Essentially, we're focused on general consulting and management through Harvest 360. This is, make no mistake about it, the real workhorse, the engine that drives BLDV and makes things happen. That's through application writing, that's through direct management, and that is helping provide expert advice to those who seek to enter the market. We do that through a number of ways: education and training, and David Serrano will tell you a lot about that, and simply coaching, guiding, and giving advice on how to enter into this market. The other area that we're focused on, and I'm very excited about, is lab testing with H360 Labs. As I said, I'm really trying to set the conditions for research and development of this plant to be executed on a much larger scale. And I believe that the laboratories, the testing, and the ability to provide specificity to really what is the world's most complex plant and probably the world's most therapeutically active plant, it all resides under the laboratory. That's kind of the linchpin. That's the thing that brings it all together, provides this market, this industry legitimacy. It also gives patients predictability and an understanding of how this complex plant might work on their body. And so we think that this is really the key to advancing cannabis as a medicine and ensuring safety of consumers even in the adult use market. So we're really excited about that. Huge growth potential there. We're in the right time, as I said, all right? We've been experiencing, with the re-legalization of cannabis since 1996, what I believe is a true paradigm shift that has impact along multiple lines, right? The first being social justice and social equity, right? Social justice meaning that we're no longer putting human beings in a cage for a plant that's never killed anyone. And social equity within the industry, meaning that communities of color are finding employment opportunities in this industry, and we want to continue to advance that so that the cannabis industry looks more like a cross-section of American society, whereas currently now it's a little bit skewed. And we're trying to change the game there, both in application writing, but also in education and training, which is a very exciting part for us. We believe that there are economic impacts, and we're seeing these firsthand when we implement a license. For example, what we're doing with the laboratory in Chillicothe, Missouri, is a rural community which has welcomed us into society there, and we're having an economic impact by giving back to that particular community. There are sustainability impacts that we focus on as well. We believe that's part of the re-legalization and the advances in technology that we're seeing in the cultivation, manufacturing, testing, processing, delivery of this plant. So it's really exciting there. But the biggest one that we really focus on and really try to nurture is the health and wellness aspect that this paradigm shift will bring us, right? So that we no longer have to rely on often dangerous pharmaceuticals and can instead transition over to natural medicines. We're also in 2020, kind of a big year. We survived. We didn't only survive, I think we thrived. I think we really thrived. And I think much of that has to do with the geographic positioning that we have in the country with all of the teammates that I have on here at Blue Diamond Ventures. And we've gone this year in 2020, despite having a global deadly pandemic taking place, the United States has really considered cannabis to be essential, more than essential. It's no longer illegal. This is something that is really essential, and we saw that in major marketplaces like California, Michigan, Illinois, and a number of different states when they tried to close down the dispensaries during the COVID outbreak, and the world kind of lost their mind. So they opened those back up and called them essential because people are really relying on this plant as medicine. So that's pretty exciting. We also had huge moves in the cannabis space in the United States, right? In 2020, we went 5 for 5 in terms of legalization. There were 5 initiatives on ballots across the country, and 5 won, right? So with the addition of New Jersey, Arizona, Montana, and South Dakota, which by the way was a twofer, right? They were the first state ever to legalize for adult use as well as medical use in the very same year. And then we also have Mississippi that passed medical cannabis. So it's very exciting. So I think we really evolved. Our company did, and we thrived during 2020 despite being stuck in our homes, right? Part of that too came from all of the time and energy that we invested over the last 3 years going to conferences around the country and around the world. And the networks and the relationships, the very important relationships that we established during that time frame, as well as the credibility and the trust in the integrity of our organization has paid massive dividends, and we're really excited about that. Another thing that happened this year on a global scale was that the World Health Organization recommended to the United Nations, and it was approved and voted on by the United Nations members to include the United States, to take cannabis off of their list of dangerous drugs. What this does is it really opens up the world for research into this plant. Of course, another big thing you may have heard about is there's a new administration in Washington, D.C., and a new party has control of Congress, and they have platforms now where they have committed to pursuing the legalization of cannabis. And we're hoping that that can really be fast forwarded, because then we can truly have justice and liberty for all. And we can also have access to this plant that we believe is very effective, right? So I'm told this is truly happening in the midst of an inflection point in human history, right? With COVID, with the health crisis that we're seeing in our country, especially in regarding opioids and suicide, anxiety, depression has increased significantly. We believe that we are in the right place at the right time. In 2021, we plan on focusing significantly on new and evolving markets, right? That includes the markets that we're all resident in that I shared with you: Colorado, Missouri, Kansas is looking to legalize medical cannabis now, which is 20 minutes from me. Arizona, Illinois, New York, New Jersey. So we've got these areas covered, and we're very excited about those, and we'll be focusing on them. We'll focus on them to implement new laboratories in places where we can find operators to work with us, increasing licensure for different emerging markets as well for clients. And then we're seriously looking for opportunities for international moves and things that we can do on an international scale. And that could be consulting for governments or entities or anyone who's interested in entering the cannabis space. One thing that I've really enjoyed this year has been increasing our communications and talking more about Blue Diamond Ventures. I spend a lot of time now on Twitter. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well, and all of my posts are public. And as I said, I'm an activist at heart. So now one of my activist moments is really on a monthly basis, the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Central Time. I host a show called Veterans on Cannabis, where we have incredible guests and try to move the needle and influence Washington, D.C. and those in the local community about what's going on in the cannabis space, and kind of trying to paint a picture for them of what the future could look like. We're committed to doing monthly updates, increased social media presence, both on the BLDV and the Harvest 360 side. So it's a very exciting year that we have in front of us, and I'm very proud of what we've done in the last year, and super excited for the future. So, without further ado, I would like to pass this over to Josh Alper, but first I want to give one of the things that makes this thing work so well, not just our relationships within the industry, but the relationships that exist between the four men that you see on this screen. That's the true leadership of this organization. It's the sum of all of who we are. And I'm very excited. I'm very proud of each one of these three men. I surround myself by superheroes whenever I can, and I've definitely succeeded in this. Each of them have their own superpower, and each of them are capable of doing each other's jobs, and we do it on a regular basis. That's something that's very rare in any leadership team. So the trust and the faith, the confidence and the love that is shared between these four individuals is a major portion of what keeps our team together and focused and forward moving. So with that, I will pass the mic to the CEO of Blue Diamond Ventures. I'd like to welcome to the stage Josh Alper. And the crowd goes wild.
Thanks, Todd. Great introduction, great lead in to 2021. And so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Josh Alper. I've been the CEO of Blue Diamond since 2016, March of 2016. And, during the last 5 years, our goal has always been to be driving the revenue of the company and trying to improve the market share. But currently, the things that we're focused on in terms of strategy have to do with three main parts that will lead us to that, which is driving revenue, uplisting the stock, which I know is something that many of you are very interested to hear about, and also how we drive the share value once the stock has been uplisted. And so let me start by saying, confirming that it is our plan to uplist to the OTCQB this year. And so a lot of the announcements that we've made in the last year in terms of working towards an audit, trying to control the share structure in a responsible manner, have really all been geared towards trying to uplist. And so we can have that strategy, and the question is how? What's the how? How do we achieve that strategy? And I think there are three main components, and Todd hit on a lot of these already. And so some of it will be a little bit repetitive, but it's a little bit different context. And so it starts with, I think, integrity, leadership, and innovation. And those are the things I really want to talk about. And so to start with integrity, 5 years ago when I started with Blue Diamond, we had a unique challenge that being on the pink sheets of the OTC is not always considered to be a credibility condition for a company. And also the cannabis industry is also, in terms of industries, certainly 5 years ago, even worse, but now even considered a less than credible industry. So we had the double whammy of establishing that we were really serious about this company and the integrity of this company. And so I think that more importantly, rather than a laundry list of all the things we've done, I think it's probably best to think about the things we didn't do and the things that, our peers in the small cap cannabis world have suffered from. What we haven't done is we haven't taken any toxic debt, which is the number one consideration in the pink sheets. Because of the credibility gap, it's difficult to raise money. And so people are enticed into seemingly reasonable investment strategies that can turn out to be very detrimental to the company. We also haven't taken on a lot of debt. The debt of Blue Diamond is under $100,000. And, compared to some of the companies with similar or even lower market caps that are holding $10 to $20 million in debt from various failed marketing efforts. So part of our strategy was not to waste money. So we didn't waste money, and we also didn't play the regular game of trying to really push the stock value, and we doubled down on creating revenue. And that was the theory behind merging with Harvest 360 in February of 2019, was that with this team and Blue Diamond come together, and we had worked together for a couple of years before that. We don't do anything very quick at Blue Diamond because we always come back to this question of integrity. So the number one question in terms of public company strategy has to do with a reverse. And so, I'm not, we'll be talking about questions later, But more importantly, we've made a promise to always add value with corporate actions. And we've lived up to that promise in the sense that we've taken all shareholders as having equal value and trying to do the best we could to drive the integrity of the company. So a lot of people have complained, like, Josh, why do you act like you're on the NASDAQ? And why aren't you optimizing your position on the pink sheets? And my answer would be that's how you get on the NASDAQ, is by pretending that like you are. So, on the integrity thing, my goal as the CEO has been to look for strategic partnerships and to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the company to the point where we have not done any dilutive stock sale in the company in 3 years. And with the exception of the stock that was issued to Harvest 360 team during the acquisition, we've sold no private placements or diluted the stock in any way. So the second point was leadership, in my integrity, leadership, and innovation. And Todd hit on this, that every member of our team is a leader and in their own way. And you'll get a chance to hear from each one of them. And it's, to just as a compliment to Todd, the fact that this bunch with this many skills entrust themselves to Todd tells you there must be really something special about his leadership. And there is. And so, part of leadership isn't just in the company, it's out in the community, and it's in the organizations. I've seen Todd's activities in Missouri, where every time there's been a vacuum in leadership, whether it's smoke can trade, or whether it's driving standards or educating people, he's been a leader in that. David has done tremendous amount of business development and social advocacy and everything that put Harvest 360 in the position to partner with Blue Diamond to make all this happen. And Sebastian is just considered an incredible strategist in marketing and marketplace, which are two different things in the cannabis world, residing in Colorado, having literally grown up in the business and really now sitting on boards and being a really valuable part of our leadership. So the leadership is in the cannabis industry. That's something that we're exporting to other companies. And if you talk to our clients, our consulting clients, they will all agree that the leadership that we bring to their organizations is just as important as the technologies and the innovations and the intellectual property. And Todd touched on the fact that Clement Hayes, our general counsel, as well as accomplished IP attorney in Colorado, is responsible for helping us with this idea of capturing IP in the marketplace, trademarks, branding. And so innovation, and this is really my specialty. I've spent the last 40 years being on the leading edge of technologies and emerging technologies across many industries, including wireless controls and building automation, cloud computing, Internet of Things. Now it's quantum computing and artificial intelligence. And so my role is to keep this group on the leading edge of innovation, because innovation is what drives the competitive, sustainable advantage that we seek to give to our clients and to ourselves. And as Todd mentioned, the laws are changing, and it's no secret that Blue Diamond wants to own licenses in the cannabis space. We want to own and be able to own these operations. Today, we are in management roles, technology management roles, consulting roles, IP provisioning. But as the laws change, we'll be diversifying into license ownership, which will also help to drive the share value. So overall, we're committed to cannabis biotechnology, and I would say that's the overall strategy. pharmaceuticals are a part of that. We think of pharmaceuticals as almost like gravity. It's a way to propel projects. Pharmaceuticals have so much money and so much influence. If we can get them interested on our terms, and we're doing some exciting things with that, with research and the Athena protocol, and hopefully we'll have some announcements about specific targets we've reached in research soon. So, on the question of innovation, I feel that we are driving the industry right now in two areas, in robotics and in data and artificial intelligence. Some of the things that we're doing there are very, very important to developing services that can be deployed on a larger and larger scale. Because as Todd alluded to, new markets, 4 new ones this year. How many new ones next year? How many of the medical markets, including Missouri, where our brand strategy is located? The work we're doing today with H360 Labs is the most significant project of the whole group right now. And we're proud with our partners there. We're proud with our collaborators there and what we've done with the Waters Corporation. And success in that area will drive success in all areas. So I'm getting more into projects and details of business development. I'm going to turn it over to David Serrano, our Chief Business Development Officer, and I thank you for taking the time to listen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give a brief on our activities and business development, kind of cue you into a little bit of the strategy that we're taking to enter into direct licensing over the next year and beyond. So, first we'll cover consulting. Consulting is a major line of business for Harvest 360, and as seen in 2019, we can clear 7 figures on consulting license contracts alone. 2020, however, proved to be the hardest year in consulting for every industry, and especially the cannabis industry. A key driver for the consulting line of business is going to be legalization. So as states legalize cannabis and whether it's medical or adult use, we're going to experience an uptick in inquiry for consulting services, specifically to assist businesses in applying for a cannabis license. This is a process, I think we all take for granted. We do this every single day, and I recognize that there are folks here that don't, understand that part of the industry. So I'll do my best to kind of educate you shortly in a short period of time. But to get a license in the cannabis industry, you need to fill out a pretty extensive application that includes business plans, operational plans, packaging plans, sanitation plans, processing plans, financial plans. The first application that we did in 2018 was for a client in Virginia, Dharma Pharmaceuticals, which we wrote and submitted a 1,200-page application, and that application won a license, one of 5, of which over 70 major cannabis companies applied for, and we competed in and won one of those 5 licenses on behalf of our client. And we later were sought after by some of the folks that we beat out for consulting work and enjoy relationships with some of the larger companies in the space. But we really do focus on reducing barriers of entry and getting and starting up new companies. So although working with the larger MSOs is a part of our line of business, the majority of our line of business with respect to consulting is going to come from startup companies that are looking to get into the space. Now, what's interesting about being in that position is we oftentimes are working with teams of folks that are looking to us for not only leadership within that process, expertise in that process, but also follow-up opportunities. So, Josh will work with those custom clients to understand some of the technology needs. We'll reach into our value-added reseller group and find opportunities to continue to add value to these companies, even post license application, which lends itself into longer-term management deals. Every once in a while, and this has happened a couple of times, we work for a client that ends up becoming more than a client, becomes a partner. For example, in Missouri, where Josh will speak a little bit more about the labs there. The client initially hired us for an application, and we won that license with the client, and now have a management licensing agreement, IP agreement with that lab, and they're now doing business as H360 Labs, and we're licensing in technology and brand potential and opportunities with a longer term relationship, of course, that's contracted and multi-year with all sorts of good stuff, royalties included, contracts, consulting, and so these are opportunities that generally present themselves after a license is awarded. So we want to be at that point where folks are submitting those licenses, helping them submit those licenses, show our expertise, show our leadership, and hope that we could continue to do long-term business. So with 2020 COVID shutdown, we did double down on those relationships and have installed a couple of different a number of different licensing agreements in Michigan in particular, and in Missouri, and now working in Arizona. Anticipating an uptick in business because of new legalization from the consulting side, we systematically catalog thousands of pages of industry best practices for the entire vertical, which includes cultivation, extraction, production, dispensing, and testing. And as previously reported, we have entered into an agreement with CHT, a software development company specializing in computer learning and expert automation processes. Essentially, we are training a computer to operate with our combined knowledge and industry best practices without human error to produce business plans and automated applications. The computer currently can autonomously score business plans and applications and make expert recommendations in less than 60 seconds, taking our capabilities, which can take weeks, if not months, and driving in and doing it now in less than a minute, which means that we can scale without with ease and without the burden of human resource management and things of that nature, and the costs that come along with that. We are actively working with the developers to get the computer to a point where it can completely automate every aspect of the business plan and the licensing process. This is a part of our broader strategy to reduce the barriers of entry while scaling revenue potential efficiently. A note on that: as Todd mentioned, we are activists, we are advocates. We do consider ourselves social entrepreneurs. And I think what we're trying to do here is unlock mechanisms that we can do good and earn revenue and increase shareholder value. And projects like this certainly seek to do just that. I'll talk on licensing now. As previously noted, all of the operating entities that had a major slowdown last year for BLDV. This presented a very valuable opportunity for us to double down on our continued efforts to ease into operating and managing businesses directly in the vertical. Our strategy was to launch our favorite brands nationally, with the understanding that once we met certain milestones for those companies, we would acquire them and merge them into our larger MSO business model. To date, we are working with an Arizona-based cultivator, a Colorado-based extractor, a Missouri-based testing lab, As we refine the IP installation and management processes over the next few quarters with these initial projects, we will also simultaneously, we are also simultaneously laying down significant groundwork for multiple state penetrations to include New York, New Jersey, Virginia, Missouri, Illinois, and Michigan. I'm going to touch a little on H360 Labs. With respect to Puerto Rico, currently, due to the travel restrictions and safety for all of our employees, our partners and families, physical operations in Puerto Rico have been suspended until further notice. However, we are actively tracking legislative updates and updating our plans as the industry evolves there locally. Our commitment to position the corporate headquarters in Puerto Rico is unwavering and only a matter of time. We are hoping the conditions get better so we can get back there, hopefully before the fall. This is important for a number of reasons, to include social, economic, taxation, scientific reasons for the desire to operate on the island. We will keep folks up to date on the operations on the island as soon as they start to pick up again. On a personal note, I make it a point to visit my entirely family there at least once a year. I'm itching to get home, and so I hope that sends a message that it's it's incredibly important, and our ties there are significant and solid, and the benefit for the company will be also just as significant with the taxation benefits and such. I'll pass it to Josh for a moment here so that he can talk about the updates on H360 Labs in terms of construction and market opportunity there.
Thanks, Sebastian. I think that shareholders are probably best suited to look for updates on the lab. We provide updates regularly. I think I'll turn it over to Sebastian to get on with the questions and answers, and to talk a little bit about the operations of the company. And certainly, if there are any questions about the lab, like I mentioned, that is the most significant project for all of our organizations at the moment. And so we're very, very active in Missouri with that, and encourage investors that are interested in finding out more about the opportunities in Missouri to contact the company directly. But in the meantime, I will turn it over to Sebastian Nassau.
Just one moment. I'm gonna just wrap up the one part with education here. Sorry about that, Josh. I wanted to cue you in for that note, and I do have another update. Okay. Regarding our educational and outreach strategy, this year, as a part of our larger strategy to reduce the barriers of entry into the cannabis industry, we partnered with a number of colleges and universities to install workforce development programming, and most recently partnered with one of the largest high schools program in Chicago to help develop a cannabis business introduction course for workforce development. This particular school is working with adult learners. In addition, I sit on a cannabis council for the Chicago City Colleges to advise them on matters of curriculum and workforce development. This not only allows us to exercise our social justice mission, but lends a tremendous amount of credibility to our team and the efforts in the communities we seek to operate in. Because of this work, business referrals and speaking requests have also increased, and we think that this is a very important, critical part of our social entrepreneurship. That a lot of our marketing efforts can be derived for doing good things, and we don't really pay much for marketing. And the last point that I wanted to cover, and I'll turn over to Todd for a brief before it goes over to Sebastian, is research. This is another area where the company has partnered with academic institutions and funded research projects, and this includes what Josh was mentioning, and he is largely an orchestrator in this respect. The research in robotics, packaging, agricultural studies. And And I'll pass it over to Todd so that he can give a brief on the Athena protocol. And with that, I'll thank everyone, at least from me, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Hey, thanks, David. Yeah, so a little bit about research. We are in the middle of conducting research currently at Kansas State University at the Olathe campus. We're doing some research in collaboration with their chemistry department on post-harvest freshness of hemp products. I think this is pretty unique because we're talking about a total prohibition state of Kansas where they don't even have medical cannabis, but they do have farmers and they do have interest in growing this plant that we haven't been able to grow legally in the United States since 1937, and it's only been re-legalized at the hemp level since 2018 with the passage of that farm bill. So we're really proud. We encouraged, we inspired Missouri farmers to donate 10 pounds of dried cured hemp flower to this project. And now we're testing certain types of packaging to ensure that hemp, as it transports, maintains terpene profile, cannabinoid profile, moisture levels, weight, and things like that. Things that are important to the farmer, things that are important to a consumer. And we're just incredibly proud of it. I spent some of my early military career in the state of Kansas and at Fort Riley, and really developed a deep respect and a special relationship with Kansas. So we're really excited to do that there. And it's also the birthplace of one of my personal heroes, Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, General Eisenhower. So it's kind of neat to be doing some operations there. I'm excited to be at Kansas State University as well because, it is led by the 15th chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And so, that's General Richard Myers is the president of the university now. And, being closer to decision makers and those who might be able to help forward our initiatives with DoD research is always a bonus. Additionally, we've established a relationship with Missouri Western State University, where we plan on opening a brick and mortar office at the Kit Bond Innovation Center, which is just next to Missouri Western State University. It's also a Missouri University extension. And it is there that we will really focus on research and development in the testing space, right? The ability to expedite samples through a process and to be able to really kind of maximize throughput, because that's kind of the long pole in the tent. That's the funnel that all products in any legal market have to pass through. And so the ability to do that faster, safer, more efficiently, and get results back to a manufacturer or cultivator is very important for them to get their products onto the shelf. I also really enjoy that because for me, that's kind of like the gatekeeper. That's what keeps that's what provides legitimacy to the industry, and that's what also provides legitimacy to the medicine and ensures that patients have a significant amount of safety involved in their consumption experience. And so I think that's about it. We are interested in opening up a deeper relationship with Missouri University, which you may be aware, there are 4 Missouri University branches across the state of Missouri. That's in Columbia, University of Missouri, Kansas City, University of Missouri, St. Louis, as well as Rolla Science and Technology, all incredibly advanced schools in their own right. And they certainly have the platform upon which we might be able to conduct research into something such as the Athena protocol. We are trying to set the conditions to really research this particular endeavor by us. And if you don't know the Athena protocol, this is really our strategy to mitigate and treat traumatic brain injury and chronic traumatic encephalopathy using non-impairing cannabinoids, right? So the concept is that we would recommend giving these to soldiers before and during combat situations to maximize neuroprotection and prepare them for a potential IED blast that could result in a traumatic brain injury. We're trying to prevent traumatic brain injury because we know that those who have a traumatic brain injury or survive a traumatic brain injury are more likely to have post-traumatic stress, and are also more likely to complete suicide. So it's kind of a long way around to reducing the suicide rate among our veteran population. So I think that's about it on the education side. And I'm going to pass this over to our Chief of Operations, Sebastian Nassau, coming in from Denver. Sebastian, take it away.
Thanks, Todd, and thanks, Josh, and thanks, David, for just all the context so far. So I think, we've really sort of touched in this call on some different strategies from commercialization to how we're preparing for just research and how things are going to be moving in this industry. But in terms of just kind of a cohesive asset strategy, how does everything sort of come together on the Blue Diamond level to build a portfolio and continue to add value? I just wanted to sort of hit on this from a little bit more of an operational lens. So largely up to this point, we've been doing a lot of the service side under Harvest 360. And that almost serves sort of as a tip of the spear, which positions us as credible, reliable, trustworthy in some different emerging markets. And it allows us to get client relationships, develop strategic relationships that oftentimes end up becoming business partners. And at that point, that's what helps us build the BLDV portfolio. So if we do our job well, which we're pretty confident in our abilities to do at the H360 level, oftentimes that ends up becoming long-term management contracts, royalty agreements for just our ability to continually benefit from the commercialization of projects that we helped launch, and joint venture opportunities with partnerships that we develop, which ultimately become acquisitions of the Blue Diamond portfolio. So the overall strategy that we're really looking at is for 2021 and to really build towards a high revenue 2022 and beyond. We're looking to curate and acquire assets at just the highest value touch points across the licensed cannabis supply chain. And not just that, we're also looking at the value chain that supports that. So as we acquire different companies and bring them into the portfolio, it creates an ecosystem among companies that mutually support each other, while it also fulfills critical needs. And what I mean by that, those are the needs that tend to more or less be universal from regulated market to regulated market within this industry. So as those critical needs get filled by one company within, our portfolio, it creates an ecosystem of other companies that also support these critical needs and ultimately allow us to affect the supply chain and value chain in a lot of different markets. So I just want to define what we mean by the supply chain and the value chain here. So we identify the supply chain here as the legal, licensed, and regulated business types that provide the commercial framework to bring cannabis from seed to sale. And we want to incrementally build assets in each category that's within that supply chain. Those categories are cultivation, so the actual horticultural cultivation of the product. So providing raw materials such as flour and trim that can ultimately become sold in that form or processed goods from that form. So that also includes processing. So how do you then extract, from that raw material and create, an extracted byproduct of it that can be productized as well? It's the product manufacturing. So that's taking processed material and converting it into things such as edibles, tinctures, capsules, topicals, a whole variety of different goods. Then there's also the dispensing and transportation side, which, although it's not going to be a primary focus for us in the next quarter or two, we're really sort of positioning long-term for how we can remain open to the right collaborative developments of the dispensing side. And then as the transportation side becomes a little bit more mature in this industry, how do we sort of, take advantage of those commercial developments as they come up? So what's really important to us and how we look at the supply chain is how each asset supports the following goals. And those goals are the ability to differentiate through ownership of intellectual property, unique and advanced processes, and just superior quality products and services that can remain valuable to the market. And also, most importantly, are the teams that we're working with that are able to meet those things that I just stated. Do they also have a commitment to continual progress and development within what they're doing? Because it's such a rapidly evolving industry, it's very important to make sure that there's sort of a mutual commitment with everybody that we work with to not just be able to meet the needs of the industry today, but also meet the needs of the industry next year and the years that follow. So the value chain is what we look at in terms of just the more service-oriented side of the industry. The supply chain can't function on its own without a lot of things that tie together its ability to manage its operations. So we identify this as the ecosystem of services that provides value directly to the supply chain. And really the strategy for how we want to build assets in the value chain is by acquiring these assets that most directly and frequently support the needs of companies that operate directly in that licensed supply chain. So as we build this out, we're kind of looking to incrementally assess and build assets in, continuing to fortify the consulting and management work that we're able to do, which largely occurs through Harvest 360. That services such as business planning, application management, and long-term project management. And then on the compliance side, there's really no business in the supply chain that can operate without a very heavy focus on compliance. So we're actively building compliance partnerships as we speak to be able to, retain more value and work closer to be able to provide these services and have more control long-term over the quality assurance and quality control of our own projects and meet all regulatory standards, both in the markets that we operate in as well as the ones that we are trying to build towards operating in. Marketing is something that has very unique demands for the cannabis industry. Companies that market in the cannabis industry oftentimes have to navigate complex regulations that are pretty unique to the cannabis industry. So we recognize that every company has to market, and it's difficult a lot of times to be able to work with companies that can market effectively to this industry. So our ability to maybe be able to capture some value within this ecosystem from our ability to help marketing firms navigate the space. Then we also look at financial services, which again have very unique considerations to the space, particularly in tax implications, as well as just the meticulous nature of financial record keeping and reporting. And then security is also a really important aspect. With the amount of regulation that occurs over the supply chain of cannabis, security is one of the most lucrative areas of the industry, and that's because it's universally recognized as one of the most important. So from there, now that we've all sort of been able to give an overview of just these different strategies and break it down and how it affects the company as a whole, the direction it's going, as well as how it's affecting our operations on a day-to-day basis, we're going to answer some questions that you guys have sent in. So I'll try to move through these kind of quickly, and we appreciate how many questions we've received. We're going to do our best to sort of hit on generally what everybody's been asking. So we've gotten a lot of questions related to shares, and hopefully Josh has been able to elaborate on some of these things to an extent to which it's answered a lot of these questions, but I'll still go through some of these quickly. And the questions largely have to do with our plans to uplist on higher exchange. And as Josh had mentioned, we're currently working towards uplisting to the OTCQP, and this requires 2 years of audited financials, which we're currently working on an audit for 2019 and 2020. So we expect that uplisting will take most of 2021 to complete. We also have questions about the timeline in which this uplisting will occur. And aside from buying shares back, do we think a share cancellation will occur to allow the stock price to reach greater heights? So share buyback and returns to the Treasury will be announced as they're confirmed and approved by regulators. We have questions about the share structuring, specifically about reduction in outstanding shares. So we're always interested in reducing outstanding shares, and we've taken some steps towards this goal. When do we anticipate the share reduction to be displayed and updated on the OTC markets page? So this is something we're currently in works with our transfer agent. So that's the Securities Transfer Corporation. And the 700 million shares returned from Can 10 are currently at the transfer agent. They're secure, and they're awaiting confirmation documents from Israel. So when this is received, the shares will be put in the Treasury and the outstanding shares reduced. And we're also being asked if we anticipate a reverse split in 2021. And just in general, I would just say that any corporate action, including reverse, it would only be entertained if it added value for all shareholders. So moving on to some more strategic and operational questions that we've received. There's questions about the new technologies, whether the new technologies be tech, not previously mentioned in past press releases or news, or is this more of an elaboration of that previous technology? So if I understand the question correctly, new technologies alone are not enough to drive value. Technologies need to be capitalized and commercialized in the marketplace. So news is made when the potential of the new technology is defined and a collaborative group of stakeholders is created to be able to drive the revenue behind it. So another question is, with the understanding that these questions can't fully be answered yet, appreciate that, we're being asked if the strategic partnerships to be discussed includes the GoPronto merger acquisition, or is there another partnership that's going to be discussed? Great question. I think Josh briefly hit on this. Strategic partnerships, I mean, they're the lifeblood of BLDV. And we value these partnerships and we really gravitate towards developing them and developing them very authentically and sustainably. So we recently announced that GoPronto is acquired and integrated into the tech package that's being sold to H360 Labs. This added value to that package, which is being sold to lab operators, all of whom are dealing with complex transportation challenges. We're also being asked, what do we feel gives us a competitive advantage in our industry? Which is a really good question, and it's something that we have to continue to really develop and reiterate on a day-to-day basis and make sure it's behind everything that we do. And, without getting into just a really nuanced answer, I think it's really circling back to a lot of the things that both Todd and Josh have said, which really is leadership, integrity, and innovation, specifically even within innovation, technology and intellectual property. What upcoming contracts or ventures do we believe will impact our growth the most? And have you noticed any positive impact from the CIMP conference in December? And what additional impact do we anticipate? Good question. Everything that we do is driven by the need for research in the cannabis space. That's the desire to drive positive outcomes for patients and consumers alike. So Green Orchard Labs in Missouri is creating that research platform, and this really remains a central effort to everything that our group is doing in 2021, whether directly or indirectly. And we're being asked what the main source of revenue streams are. So in short, just for the sake of time, it's consulting and royalties, largely from trademarks and know-how, and this remains the main source of our income at this point. Where do we stand in the Athena protocol? I believe Todd was able to sort of answer that in more depth than I'll be able to within the time constraints, so we'll leave it at that. What is H360 Labs working on? So Harvest 360 Labs is creating a package of IP and processes and know-how that'll be sold to labs in regulated cannabis and hemp markets globally. So this has already been contracted and is in progress and being built out in real time with Green Orchard Labs in Missouri as one of the 10 licensed testing labs to be able to deal with the medical cannabis market. And that will remain only 10 licensed labs. What all is Harvest 360 doing that is unique? And this is a question that I love. It's something that we feel particularly differentiates us. And I think what really differentiates us is our focus on providing services that focus on creating opportunities for social equity, social justice, and research in the medical and adult use cannabis markets. We believe that it's not just this focus, but it's our ability to organize, mobilize, and commercialize these efforts in a way that has real impact on communities, particularly those that have been most impacted by the war on drugs. And it's also a core focus of ours to bridge the gap between that and really improving access for patients and consumers. And we think that this work is particularly needed And we've been very happy about the opportunities that we've had to engage different states, territories, and countries in this capacity. And we're finding long-term opportunities in the work that we've done and in our ability to be doing it. So last couple questions really quickly. How can people find and listen to our podcast? That's easy. Just go on bldv.us. Again, that's bldv.us. And will this investors call be posted to the website like the last call? Yes, it will. So that just about concludes as many questions as I could get to within the time allotted. So I appreciate Todd, appreciate Josh, appreciate David for allowing me the time on the call with you guys. Appreciate everybody that's joined us.
Thanks very much, everyone. I believe this is the end of the shareholders conference call. I just want to reiterate, our gratitude for your faith and confidence in this team. I think that we are truly unique. One of the unique aspects of the team that I forgot to mention entirely, I think we all did, because it's so normal for us, is that we are a very multilingual team, right? Which also sets the conditions for us to expand globally. Within this team, we speak French, German, Czech, Serbo-Croatian, Spanish, and Hebrew. And I think that's kind of unique and a differentiator. But I hope from this conference call that you can recognize, one, this is a legitimate company, right? This is not, I won't denigrate anyone else on the boards or anything, but this is a legitimate company. This is a vessel within which we carry a significant vision, a dream to really launch this cannabis industry into the future and to build the industry that we would be proud for our children and our future to inherit. We believe that we're a big part of that. So I also want to just reiterate our commitment to pushing as hard as we can to uplist to the OTCQB. I think that is a milestone that is attainable. I think we have a roadmap to get to it. I want to give you continued information on how we're doing that. And then our commitment as well to Puerto Rico. I know David mentioned it as well, but we do have, we're very committed to the island and bringing it into the future through cannabis. And another thing that I also want to highlight is that the education and training platforms that we're developing, that David is really spearheading. One, I feel like this is, the best way to provide a great future for someone is to provide them with education and training. And when that education and training is focused on the nation's fastest growing industry, even better, right? So I think we're doing good things. I think we're being very genuine, very transparent, open and honest with everyone. I appreciate your time and your faith and trust in us. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful weekend. Reach out on any social media platforms that you would like, and we'd love to respond to any questions to you. All right, take care and have a wonderful weekend.